Imagine growing up surrounded by immense American wealth, only to cross the Atlantic and marry into one of Britain's oldest noble families. A family with enormous titles, ancient castles, and almost no money left. It sounds like a fairy tale, but for Helena Zimmerman, it became a story of ambition, scandal, public humiliation, and ultimately personal freedom. She was one of the most fascinating dollar princesses of the Gilded Age, an American heiress whose fortune helped sustain a fading European aristocracy. But unlike many women of her era, Helena eventually refused to remain trapped inside the world that had tried to define her. This is the remarkable story of Helena Zimmerman, the dollar princess who changed the system that tried to own her. Helena Zimmerman was born in 1878 in Cincinnati into one of the wealthiest industrial families in America. Her father, Eugene Zimmerman, built a massive fortune through railroads, transportation, and industrial investments during the explosive growth of America's Gilded Age. Helena grew up surrounded by luxury and privilege, educated to move comfortably within elite society. But at the end of the 19th century, many wealthy American families faced a problem money alone could not solve. They lacked aristocratic pedigree. Meanwhile, across Europe, many noble families possessed ancient titles and magnificent estates, but struggled financially. Out of this imbalance emerged one of the most fascinating social phenomena of the era: the dollar princesses. American heiresses brought enormous fortunes into European aristocratic marriages, while noble families offered titles, prestige, and entry into centuries-old social circles. In 1900, Helena married William Montagu, heir to one of Britain's historic noble houses. For Helena's family, the marriage offered social prestige. For the Duke, Helena's fortune represented desperately needed financial support. Reports from the period claimed Eugene Zimmerman contributed millions of dollars to the marriage settlement, an extraordinary sum for the time. The wedding attracted major attention in both the United States and Britain. Suddenly, Helena Zimmerman had become the Duchess of Manchester, and at first, the future appeared dazzling. From the outside, Helena's new life looked glamorous beyond imagination. She attended aristocratic events, moved through elite European society, and lived among castles, estates, and royal connections. But behind the polished facade, serious problems were already emerging. The Duke of Manchester developed a reputation for reckless spending, gambling, and financial irresponsibility. Despite Helena's enormous wealth, money flowed out almost as quickly as it arrived. Lavish lifestyles, debts, gambling losses, and poor financial decisions placed increasing strain on the marriage. What initially seemed like aristocratic extravagance gradually became financial disaster. Properties were mortgaged, debts accumulated, and Helena increasingly realized that her fortune had become a lifeline for a collapsing aristocratic system. At the same time, the marriage itself deteriorated emotionally. The relationship grew tense and unhappy, while rumors about the Duke's behavior spread throughout high society and the press. For Helena, the situation became deeply isolating. As an American woman inside Britain's rigid aristocratic world, she faced enormous pressure to remain silent, composed, and loyal, regardless of personal suffering. But maintaining appearances could not solve the deeper reality. The marriage was collapsing, and Helena was about to make a decision that shocked aristocratic society. In the early 20th century, divorce within the British aristocracy remained scandalous, especially for women. A duchess was expected to endure almost anything in silence for the sake of family reputation and social stability. But Helena Zimmerman refused to accept that role forever. After years of unhappiness and public embarrassment caused by financial instability and scandal, Helena sought legal separation from the Duke of Manchester. The process attracted enormous media attention on both sides of the Atlantic. To many observers, the divorce symbolized the growing failure of the dollar princess system itself. American fortunes entering aristocratic marriages that often lacked affection, compatibility, or stability. For British traditionalists, Helen became controversial. But for others, she represented something entirely different: a woman willing to reclaim control over her own life despite overwhelming social pressure. Her divorce marked a turning point. No longer trapped within the expectations of an aristocratic marriage, Helena began rebuilding her identity on her own terms. She had entered Europe as a wealthy American symbol. Now, she was becoming an independent woman in an era that rarely rewarded female independence. Years later, Helena found something she had never truly experienced during her first marriage: peace. In 1937, she married Jean de Castellane, a member of a respected French noble family. Unlike the Duke of Manchester, Jean de Castellane was not seeking financial rescue or aristocratic spectacle. He lived a quieter and more restrained life, far removed from the excesses and scandals Helena had previously endured. Their marriage attracted little sensational attention, and that may have been exactly what Helena wanted. Together they lived primarily in Europe, dividing time between France and England while avoiding the intense public scrutiny that had once dominated her life. For the first time, Helena experienced companionship without the crushing pressure of performance, obligation, or public spectacle. This second marriage became a form of quiet redemption. She no longer needed to prove her worth through titles or wealth. She had already survived the collapse of one aristocratic dream. Now, she simply wanted peace. Helena Zimmerman spent her later years surrounded by art, literature, and close personal relationships, far removed from the scandals that once filled newspaper headlines. She died in 1971 at the age of 93, having lived through the Gilded Age, 2 world wars, the decline of Europe's old aristocracy, and enormous changes in the role of women in society. Today, Helena is remembered as one of the most fascinating and complex dollar princesses of her generation. Her story reflects both the glamour and the darker realities behind those famous transatlantic marriages. The exchange of money for titles, the pressure placed upon wealthy young women, and the emotional cost hidden beneath aristocratic luxury. But Helena Zimmerman's story also became something more powerful. It became the story of a woman who refused to remain trapped by the role society had written for her, and in doing so, she transformed herself from a symbol of wealth into a symbol of personal freedom.